everybody. I'm going to do something a little different today. I got recently, a couple of weeks ago, I opened up 3 24 by 24 canvases with the Gallery Deep profile. And I love these because I love painting right to the edge. This one is not finished, but I want to show you part of my process for the painting that's underneath. I did many layers to even get to this point. I started off with a lot of my gel printed tissue prints, a lot of them with black, and I pasted them everywhere. And then I put a little bit of color everywhere. And then I decided I didn't want all that black. I wanted to keep my beautiful happy colors that I like to use. So I started painting over the black. Then I add a little more. This is white tissue print here. I added some white paint and I scribbled into that with a toothpick to reveal the color that was below. I had too much of this grid. This, by the way, was molding paste with stencils. And I liked the pattern, and I love watching, if you've watched my videos, you know I love watching paint flow. I like the intuitiveness of it. I love to make a great big mess and then wonder, what am I going to do with it? And just slowly, intuitively start working on layers. And I let the painting reveal itself to me. And I start to know I'm getting close when I see a story happening. So anyway, I covered a lot of the paint up, the molding paste up, because there are grooves, but I love using them because there are grooves here where they become channels for the paint to flow, and I love picking up new colors that way. In other areas, I put paint down and I spray it with water, tip the canvas, and let the paint flow. And in this case, I took out a very fine pen and some fluid white and started to just decide I wanted to do these shapes. These patterns here are from putting paint down and then picking up the color with the texture, the pattern of the paper towel, and it makes wonderful effects. And then I just took black or dark burgundy and brought that out. So I love the intuitiveness of it. This one I started seeing circles and wondered, oh, what I also do is I take the painting in between sessions and I put it against a wall in my TV room, and I have it there, and whenever I glance up at it, from a distance, I start to see things popping out. And that's what happened there. I saw these 3 circles and I thought, I want to make them pop forward. I love playing with depth and layers. So then I thought, I want to make this pop forward just like that did down here. So anyway, this is, in my mind, possibly halfway finished, but who knows where it's going to go. But I did the very same technique for this canvas here. And at the time, at the beginning, there was a lot of the quinacridone Nicolazo gold and the quinacridone red iron oxide, and I love my transparent blue. So these, and Indian yellow and quinacridone Nicolazo gold, those are my favorite colors. The same thing happened here. There was a lot of, all of this area here was from molding paste and a stencil, same with this. And then I didn't like so much of it, so I started getting heavy white paint and painting over, and then rubbing off and deciding what wants to stay revealed and what wants to be covered. And then here as well, I put white over it. I scraped with the toothpick and did this. And then later on, when it dries, when I put the blue over, it started to go into those grooves, and it made a nice scribbling thing, which is something I do on most of my work. I do these random scribbles. I usually say a mantra or something positive for positive reinforcement in my mind as I'm doing it, but it's not obvious what I was thinking. But I know when my paintings are finished, whether it gets covered up or not, I know that that is there, and I put good intent into my work. So anyway, this one was a lot like the other one. I didn't know where it was going. I couldn't see, it was so close up, I couldn't see what I wanted. So for 2 days, I had it against the wall at the opposite end of my TV room, and I started to look, and I realized it from far back, it reminded me of a vase with a bouquet of flowers, and these were petals. And it just, I don't see it standing here, but from far back in the room, I saw it. And before I saw that, I had this molding paste textured pattern, so I started to put glazes of colors over it. I do that a lot, transparent glaze, and quite often I even just use my finger, and then I think, oh, I quite like this here, so I wipe that back to keep it white. I wiped a little back here to keep white. Here was some white dribble, so I allowed that to stay white, but I put some of this magenta sort of to move it around the page. And this was previously from a black gel plate printed tissue that I put down, and I thought it's really strong, so I went with white fluid paint and painted around the edges. I quite like how later on I will take an old fat brush and I will just dab it around with white paint and make a cloudy edge everywhere and decide to reveal or cover up at that point. I'm already liking what's happening here. I absolutely love this pattern, and it's so whimsical, and you can't think of painting that if you just get a paintbrush and paint. This has to come from layers. The very first layer, as I said, I did some of these gel plate printed tissues, but I also took a plain stamp and started stamping things everywhere. So these are things that get revealed. This is stamping underneath here, but it's already well buried, but it's very subtle. I like that. This was gel print tissue in black that I had put down. So all of these things are here. When I started covering up things, and I thought there was too much texture from the molding paste, so I started covering up with the heavy white paint. Then I saw I got these ridges, and as it dried, I love these ridges. I left them there because when I put paint down as a glaze now, if I want, I can take a paper towel and keep it flat actually, and I could wipe away, and what I'm doing is wiping away the top surface of the ridges of this, and I'm revealing the white underneath. So it plays with movement, because my mantra for my artwork, and you'll see it on my website, you'll see it on my banner if I'm at a show, it's color, movement, and energy. And I love, love, love the energy of this, but standing up close to it, I didn't know what it was. It wasn't until I put it in the back of a room that I realized that it seemed to want to be a bouquet of flowers. And if you've seen my work, I don't do bouquets of flowers. It's just not what I do. I like to keep things very abstract and imaginative for your own mind so you can see what you see. But in this case, I'm kind of thinking this is screaming to be a vase with a bouquet of flowers, and I may or may not deal with these later, but I'm not touching those right now because I want to see what develops with this. And I also thought that this interesting pattern here from molding paste stencil before gave me an idea that this vase and this bouquet of flowers would be balanced beautifully with this bits of green, and you could just imagine that that would be greenery in a bouquet. And it's not obvious leaves, and I'm probably going to bring out some green in these grooves here. They're not going to be obvious, and same with here. There won't be obvious green leaves. They're going to be abstract, but when you look back at the far end of a room and you look at this, you're going to see that it's a bouquet of flowers with greenery. So I think this is amazing. I really want to work with this, and I normally don't film things like this with my YouTube channel. I film on paper in my art journal techniques to do all this, but I thought it was time to share with you how you can apply everything I've been teaching you for the last year and how you can make something from it. So I'm going to go ahead right now and do a little bit of work. I want to keep the integrity of some of this, so I don't want to overdo, and the little few things that I do at a time, I will let it dry. I'll put it back on the wall at the other end of the room, and I will see if I'm on the right track. But definitely this is telling me it needs to be a bouquet of flowers. So let's go. And again, I'm just going to play around and enhance some of the petals in the wonky shapes that they are. I did, once I decided it was a bouquet of flowers, I did, and I forgot to film it, I did take my quinacridone Nicolazo gold, and I used my finger, and I sort of glazed and smudged it around in a very smudgy pattern so that I could reveal, because from a distance it looked like this was a petal coming out of the bouquet, leaning over in front of the vase. So I thought I'll just make the vase more rust colored, And you know how if you have a copper pot and sometimes it even goes a bit green after a while, I thought that could be fun. That could imply that. And again, I don't want to make this an obvious shape vase just now. I want to see what develops first. Again, it's probably a vase shaped like this, but we will see. So I'm going to leave this for now, and once I finish all of this, I will know what I'm going to do with the pot. So I just want to take some of this heavier white paint, I'm almost out, and sort of define a few things, and then I'll let that dry, and then I'll probably do a little bit of the green, and then we'll see what happens as I view it. So I'm going to use a flat brush, but a big one, and put quite a bit of white on here. And I don't like the texture of this here, because that was molding paste that I put on to cover the other, and it's just becoming a funny ridge, and I didn't like it. So I'm just gonna pretend this is a wonky petal. But once I get some of the paint down, I want to just very lightly spread it around, because I want to make it a little thicker to cover up the ridges of what was below. And I really like that I reveal some of what's below there. I'm not trying to make a smooth surface to cover it all up, just some of it. And again, I'm trying to get away from the texture of that stencil there. I want to bring that out in the green, but I want this to be like a flat leaf over it. I could do it again with molding paste, but I didn't like how the molding paste goes gray. I didn't like the surface of it, so I'm not going to use molding paste right now. I'm just going to do this. So that's an interesting petal perhaps. This one as well has a funny texture, so I'm just going to cover some of that up. And I didn't like what's happening there, so I'm just going to make that. And again, I don't want this to be even the obvious shape of petals. Oh, I'm going to bring out this because I like that, and I want to keep the integrity of what's happening beyond it. So I'm just going to do this, and this will be another petal. I hope this works. I am today in front of you experimenting, and I'm enjoying that. I want to keep this. I think that's wonderful. So I'm going to do another so-called petal. Plus I want to bring the eye a little bit over here. So I'm going to bring another petal there. And I want to keep this fuzzy shaping in between them. I think that's kind of fun. Might even do this. And over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I like odd numbers, so I'm going to do another one here. I'm going to cover up some of that print there, and I don't mind. This is a really interesting shape. I'm going to keep it like that. I don't want to do anything more. And I'm going to keep this. I like that, but I'm going to do this. And again, I'm not overthinking this. I'm just putting it down. Quite like the movement and playfulness of that. I like how I've got these dark ridges here. This is heavy ridges of paint. When it dried, it became a ridge, and when I put this blue glaze down, it stuck to the ridges, and I like that movement, and it brings the eye over to the edge, just like this pattern brings the eye over to that edge. I'm going to leave this for now because it brings the eye up. That'll bring the eye up. And again, I'm going to have green in here later, and I'm going to have green here. And since I am going to put some green in those grooves, I'm going to add a little white. I'm not getting rid of because I'm pressing hard, I'm not getting rid of the stencil, the molding paste texture. I'm just allowing places for that green to settle into those grooves and become flowers if needed. So what I'm doing is just trying to put a bit of a white glaze into the deep grooves of that molding paste, because I do want to do this kind of effect up here. And I think it might even be really neat if some of the green goes up into there. Who knows? So that's what I'm thinking. I might do a little bit of more white here so I can pick up more of this green there and leave this, because I want to imply and hint that besides these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 petals, there are other ones behind because they're picked up by the color. That might end up even looking like, from a distance, as another petal. I don't know if I'm going to keep that, so I'm going to go over that. I don't really think that helps me. We'll see later on where that goes. And I want to just fan it out because I want to keep that printing. Let me just do this. And there we go. Like I say, this is very unusual for me. And when I go later and put cloudy white all around, then I will also put some blue because I want to hint that there's more sky up here. And I love that there's more green down here. In fact, I might already do a little up here, because if I do put that blue down, it will turn brown if I put it over top of this white gold. So, but I don't mind that some of this gold will get picked up. When I put a blue glaze over here, some of this is going to still be revealed, and I kind of like that. And I think I'm going to keep this and this, but as much as I like that, I don't think I'm going to keep it. I don't think it makes sense now for this bouquet. So if I just fan this around, later on I can decide what color needs to come out. And if I decide later on I want more pattern there, I can always stencil something down or do a print from a stamp. That's a bit thick. I'm just gonna calm that down a bit. Okay, we'll let that dry and see where we go from there. I started to take it away and put it against the wall, and I thought, even though I've already got a shape here for a petal, because this paint is so heavy and thick, they come forward and this gets recessed, and it doesn't make sense because that's at the front of the painting. So I'm going to keep this silhouette, but I'm going to add, and I'm going to use my finger, I'm going to add a little bit of texture, just so that these petals, I want to keep this because I think that's fun, but I just want to enhance the I need to have a bit of a ridge here because it didn't make sense otherwise. And I like, even though that's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that could actually be, it doesn't matter that they're an even number, it really, in fact, now I'm kind of thinking, I'll wait and see later. Oh, actually, I know what I'll do. I'm going to bring this petal like this, because I just didn't like that going up. Let's get rid of that. There, now I like it. Now I'm really happy. Now I'll go ahead and let it dry, and we'll see what happens. So I've let this dry, and I like the feel of what's happening here, and I'm still happy that I'm going to go with it being a floral bouquet. But when I put this down, and I might have even said it in words that these would be petals, I don't want this to be like one big flower with petals. I want these to be just patches of areas where different flowers will be, because I want it to be a bouquet. And I want these to be in the foreground, and I want to keep the integrity of the busyness that's happening here in the background, because they will give the illusion of more flowers further back with interesting colors and textures. And I thought about that for a while, and I thought, okay, I don't want to lose the feel of this on here, because these are big flat patches of white now. And I thought I can do my high flow acrylics and watch the paint flow a bit, and I am going to do that in some of these colors. But then, as I was thinking about it while this was drying, I pulled out some previously gel printed tissues and I tore apart random scraps, and I got out of my stash all of the tissue prints that kind of had these colors already. So I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled that they have the same vibe. Look at that, look at that. So I thought about placing these around, and I can't cover all the areas. I'm going to place them here, and I tore them apart as if they're just random flower shapes, rose shapes, whatever. I can go over this later on with glazing and even maybe some fun wonky outline pen, whatever. But for now, I'm just placing these as if they're flowers that pick up this feel and this vibe. And I also had some more that were the darker, and I thought maybe it'd be fun to have these darker pinks show up. Look at that. That matches this beautifully, even though they were done completely different. And so what I'm doing is just playing around with these brighter ones, contrasting the background. But I do want these fuzzier background ones to continue with this vibe. So they will be in the back layer, but I need a little bit of this magenta to pick up the vibe. See, I can, and I'm not worrying about some of the white peeking through. And it depends when I lay these down. When I go and glue them down, it might even be different. I don't want that to look like a petal, so I would do that. Isn't that fun? And this one was really, really wonky, but this is an abstract. So I want to, and again, I can touch that up later, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to go ahead and use that on that spot. And this background of white really picks this up. And I just want to play with it. But when I found these tissue papers and I put it down, I just went, wow, that's exactly the vibe I wanted. I want this abstract painting to look from a distance as a bouquet, but also up close, that it just starts looking like one of my typical Joan Miller abstracts. So I think I've achieved that. Don't forget, I'm going to be putting some green here and there, but I love that I'm keeping the integrity of things I like, and this is what I'm going to go with. But before I glue these down, I want to just put a bit of glaze over these bits of white, so that later on I can decide what to do with them. So I'm going to take these off. Oh, and I've got a spare bit of tissue here too. This is what they were like before, and then I just tore bits apart. So I'm going to keep this aside in case I need it. But I'm going to go ahead and, like I say, I'm going to put these aside, and I'm going to put a little bit of a glaze, and I'm going to spray some water here because I just want it to be a glaze. I don't want anything too strong. And I'm using my quinacridone nickel azo gold, and I'm just going to use my fingers because that's what I like to do. Come on. Maybe I won't. I'll get it. Yeah. So I'm just trying to pick up some of the, and I'm going to leave it like that it's kind of marbly, and plus it's going to pick up, just the way I move it around with my finger keeps it more marbly and intuitive. And if there's any texture like right here, it's going to pick that up, and I like that. I like that a lot. I'll put a little more gold down here because I've got a lot of magenta already. I like how that's appearing, a little darker there. And again, these are not petals, but I'm just filling in some background. Want a little bit of gold up here to differentiate between this and what's in behind. And I don't even mind with a little bit of white showing up here and there, because that's almost like a highlight of the sun. And over here, I'm going to have a lot of that dark magenta, so I thought if I have some contrast with the nickel azo gold, That'll be nice. And again, I'm going to keep some of this white. I'll put a little bit of another color over here. Gonna baby wipe my finger off, which is my paintbrush, and I've got a little bit of pale pink here. I might use this. It's almost out, but I just want, and I'm actually purposely going to blend these colors so that they mix. That's fun. It does look like a big flower petal, but again, that's not my purpose. And I'm going to put just a little bit of magenta here, because oops, that's pretty dark. Let's just, and I want to keep it all marbly and mottled. I don't want it to look like, where's that wet wipe? I don't want it to look like a flower petal. I'm kind of isolating it in little, as if this is a rose right here and that's a different flower behind there. That's what I'll do. I'm even going to go for a little dark, because there's going to be dark over here, maybe even a little darker behind there. While that's drying, and before I apply my tissues, I want to deal with a little bit of this wonky green area. I want it to give the impression of wonky, just hints of green, not necessarily, you know how some bouquets you buy have sticky things of green. Green is a good background, but it could be different textures and shapes. Just going to get rid of that. So what I want to do, this is very 3D right now because of molding paste and stencil. This is very 3D, so I've got channels in here that I hope this green will settle into. And I'll put it on, it'll look like too much, but when it settles, it'll go into these channels and I can wipe away the top surface, and then it'll just look like squiggly lines. I'm going to use a long, soft rigger brush for this. Because I love how playful this brush is, and I'm going to wet it first. So I'm going to add some, I'm going to sort of place it down mostly where the channels are already, so that I don't have so much to wipe away later. Isn't that fun? I just think this, I mean, I never thought when I started working on this canvas at the beginning that it would take the direction it has. This is just so much fun. I decided this time, especially for a new video for you, to show you what you can do with all of the lessons I've taught you. And I thought, let's push the envelope for the artist herself. I want to do a floral bouquet, which is not my forte. I'm going to just put quite a bit of dark green right there. Anyway, doing florals is not my forte, but I'm trying to push the envelope, push myself this winter, and try different things. So that's what I'm doing. And I like the idea of this running right off down to the corner, to the edge. Might do a little more up here. As if there's just branches sticking out. I might even encourage that to go up there, because it's an abstract and I want to draw the eye all around the page, so why not? I do plan on making a misty outline all around, and some of this might disappear, but for now I'm going to keep that. So I like the movement of this, but I want the hint of green elsewhere as well, and I thought, why not pick up this pattern here as just a bit of the eye moving up the page there. And I might do this in a very smudgy glaze, just as a nice background, to hint that there might be other bouquets or other stuff further back. Maybe a little bit of that over here as well. I don't want to be too much. I don't like the idea of little patches of it everywhere. Typically when I do a contrast, which is my green, I usually do it in 3 locations, 1, 2, 3, but I don't mind just a hint of it there. So we'll just see where this goes. No idea. I'm not even thinking about this right now. Oh, and I also wanted to point out before I showed a picture of this when I put some white smudging around, and on the photo it looked like that was covered up. Afterwards I took a wet wipe before it dried and revealed some of that black underneath. That's why it looks different than the picture I posted. Even now it looks like one big weird funky flower, and I don't even mind that. It's actually quite fun as it is. I'm going to get a paper towel, a wet wipe, I mean. I'm trying to make my hand a bit flat. So I could just, what I'm trying to do is just dab the top surface a bit so that more of this is just inside the cracks. Oh, I like how that goes. So I'm going to leave this for now. I'm going to let it dry. I like the movement, the playfulness, and I'll let it dry and we'll go from there. So it's fairly dry. That's maybe a little bit tacky. So I'm going to apply, as you know my trick, fluid matte medium as a glue to put down my tissue prints. I do love what's happening here. I don't want to cover up this. I quite love, absolutely love this area. That would make an amazing abstract right there. I love what's happening up here. So I want to keep that. But I'm going to put the glue everywhere, and then I'll start, I'm going to press very lightly here because I don't want to smudge if that green's still wet. I'm going to put a fair amount because the more matte medium you put down, the more it dissolves the tissue, and then all you see is the print on that tissue. I'm going to link a video to show you the video I made, the YouTube video I made last year on printing the tissues that I am using here that I tore apart. And you'll be able to see, if you've got a gel plate, exactly how I made them, so that you can do this as well. I might not be going right over here. I'm not too sure how much of this I'm covering, so I'll just put a good dose of it. I'll have to put more as I put the pieces down. So let's start with those background ones. I want to rotate, they're all odd. I want to have it look like these flower petals are kind of sticking up. I kind of like that and that peeking out, so I'm going to do that so that it hints at 2 more flowers as well. I'm going to put this there. I don't have to be perfect again. Once I see what I've got, once I see what I have, I can always enhance later. I'm just gently putting that down until I see, because I can always lift these up and move them. So I like the shape. I don't know if again, I can enhance some of this later on. And I actually liked what was there below, but I'm trying to make it look like clusters of flowers, and I can do things with this. I can finesse it later, so don't worry. Want that to look like a flower on its own. I like this, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to put this one in the foreground, but I'm going to I'll do that. That will look like highlights. A little bit more of this. I don't want it to look like it's right smack in the middle, so I'm going to do that. So like I say, I'm just placing these. This one, oh, I want this one to be behind these two. So they blend beautifully with that pot. Let's do that. And then that. That's kind of what I'm going to do. And it is looking like it's in the middle. I'll do that. I'm going to glue these down now a little bit better. I just wanted to get these in place while I still have them in the right place. I'm going to get this one underneath. This isn't usually how I do things, but okay, I did have a lot of glue there already, so that's easily going down. This one is already glued on the bottom. I'll just add more of this. Get this one. And then that. That blended right in, but I can highlight, I can outline that. Oh, and plus I'm going to have, actually, I kind of like, let's put this back where it belongs first. I'm kind of liking this. Oh yeah, that's cool. Cool. And even if I was to accidentally fold the tissue a bit and have it fold on itself and be a bit bulky, that would give an interesting ridge, and I would keep it because it would seem like the petal is moving. So here we go. It looks a lot flatter now, a lot more subtle, but I will refine this because this is the mid painting. Later on, my favorite part is where I look and decide with I use a glaze with a darker color, and I start to define outlines. So we will do that later. Ooh, there's not enough glue here. There we go. So I've really brought the tone down, and it's not as obvious, but it will be when we're done. I'm really thinking that now this, and even what goes up here, it goes off in wonky directions. I like that. I don't like a perfectly rounded bouquet. So I'm going to let this dry and we'll go from there. But I love the movement up here as well. Completely different techniques everywhere. And again, I'm going to point out one more time, you can't possibly paint this kind of detail at this point right now. It has to develop from having layers upon layers. I love this so much. It almost reminds me of the wonkiness of these leaves, and yet it's a script, a scribble. So let's let that dry and see where we go from there. I decided that I needed a little bit more of a pink back here with a small flower, diminishing in size. These bunches are bigger in the front, and in the background I had this little piece that I almost threw out, and I thought, wow, that could be a wonky little flower far into the background, and it also allows the eye to know that the bouquet continues on instead of getting lost here. So I'm going to glue that down. I've already soaked my brush, so I'll just use my fingers. My fingers are a mess anyway. I'm just going to put that down, and we'll see. I don't want to interfere with that. I like how it's paler than this other magenta, which shows that it's in the background. There we go. That's what it needed. It needed something right there. Plus then there's a yellow flower behind there. There's a gold one. Now it looks like I've got flowers of different sizes. This is a wonky, different kind of flower again. I'm not good with the names of them, but you know, you see the ones that have these long towering stalks full of flowers. That could be that. It's just a hint. Again, this is an abstract. I'm not painting flowers. I want it to be the illusion of flowers. So I'll let that dry now. Well, I've waited a day. I've had it in the other end of the room and I've been looking at it from a distance. I'm liking the vibe. I don't like how dark that is. Now is the time where I make a decision. Do I want to work on the bouquet or do I want to do the fuzzy background? And what am I going to do about this? I think until right now, I don't like how dark a lot of this is. And of course it needs definition, but I don't want to go so far. Like I can already tell there's a flower. So I want to kind of bring out parts that might make it look like real flowers without being very realistic. I still like the abstract feel. But I think I'm going to do the white around the outside. And I also want to cover up these two things and deal with this. And then I might fix that up. But I'm going to do the outside first because then I will see the shape and silhouette of this taking shape. And then I'll know what to do. I'll know then what wants to come out. So I've got a new tube of white, and I'm just going to start maybe up in this corner. I'm going to put some white down. I'm going to use a really rough brush, and I'm just going to be smushing it around because I don't want to be I don't want to contrive too much. I'm not too sure how much of this. I kind of like the idea of them fading away into nothing. I want to show you the first of the 3 paintings I did. And before I put it down and show you, I want to tell you that the background was as dark and busy as the background of this and the other one I showed at the beginning of the video. And what I want to prove to you is you can start with very, very busy, and you can even end up covering most of that up. But if you don't put something down on the canvas, you've got nothing to work with. So this is what happened on my first one, and I'm absolutely crazy in love with it. I, of course, have kept all the molding paste, stencil, relief. But when I covered things up, that of course was still there, but I liked how it got pushed into the background here, more bold here. There's my scratches. But these were all parts of those busy prints. And as I started working on it, I knew what I wanted to cover up. Then I started doing this, and I decided that this piece wanted to be like this. So let's see where this goes. Of course, the end result is going to be a bouquet, but I wanted to show you where I'm getting at by doing this. I'm kind of just keeping some of it and fading some of it out. I want most of this one to fade out and be a hint of it, and then this one's starting. And maybe just lighten it a bit like that. And I want to keep quite white on the top here and here, but I don't want to get rid of. So what I do here is I put some of this down, and then when I put water on it, it will fan out a bit and become just a hazy mist. And I like that. And I want to keep some of this, the integrity of some of that. I don't think I want that. But I want to keep the integrity of some of the blue. So, and again, when I spray water, more of that. And I think I'm going to keep these pink dots here, like that. And let's just see where this goes. I'm kind of getting rid of a lot. I don't want to get rid of everything behind these petals, but I want to do some. So, and the more white I add around here, the more these two things will pop out. I'll probably speed some of this up because you'll get bored. I don't want all of this here. I want this line to come up here, and I don't want so much heaviness of the green in the middle. And I think I might do that. I'm just, as I hold this flat and just skim over the surface, you can see I'm keeping the green vines that I've created in the grooves, but I'm getting white on the surface. So that's the trick, is to use a flat brush, hold it flat, And you can see now I'm getting a bit of detail. I'm going to put more white in here. But I wanted to keep this. I think that's really super fun. Super, super fun. Let's see. I can always add more of that green later, but for now, and so that this area and this starts to match a little bit. Again, I'm going to just, I want it to fade away to white at the edges. So again, I'm floating the brush across the top. I'm not pressing hard. I think I'll leave that as a little dot. 1, 2, 3, and then a dot. I like that. Kind of matches the dots over there. And this, I'm just gonna, so while I work over here, I'm gonna, and this is still a bit wet, I want to spray water and let that just kind of start to flow and settle where it wants to. Kind of like the idea of keeping that fading to a bit of gray. Not gray, but shading away. So I quite like how this is fading away. So let's keep going. This is fun. I hope you try this. What I'm going for is a gentle effect for this bouquet. I don't want it to be sharp and drastic. And by doing this, it keeps the whole silhouette a little more gentle. I think I'll keep some of this, but I decided I'm not going to keep all of this. Maybe just the black dots. And maybe a bit of this. And I don't want all that green either, just a hint of it. And where I want it to blend and not be too harsh, I can smush it in a little bit with the brush and press a little harder. And same with here. I don't know, I don't want to do too much there. So I'm going to just sort of pretend that's still a flower of some sort, but I kind of want it to come out in a wonky silhouette. And I like that that's a smaller flower in the very background. I like that these are different sizes. And I'm just gonna lightly do it here because I will spray water and let that disperse. But now I'm going to put a little more white on the edge. Maybe dab a little bit of that. And as I work around, put a little bit of spray to let that settle. This is starting to settle and disperse. Maybe a little more on there. See, if you spray, you reveal some. And I kind of like the idea of that being revealed. So I'm just gonna barely touch that. I like that. Oops, a little too much. Let's bring a little more of that back. I like that. I like that. Let's encourage some of that in there. I like how dreamy this is going to be. I can always cover up a little bit more later. A little more white here. Maybe a hint of that one there. And then let's see where this goes. Might have sprayed a little too much water. Let's keep going. Oh, I'm going to spray a little here. And let's keep working our way around. I don't want to ruin any of this. In fact, I might do that so that I break up. And I like the idea of some air, some negative space coming through and highlighting a bit of an oval of a flower. So let's keep going. And I don't want to do too much over this script here, but so I'll press hard here to smush it in lightly, and then I'll dab more on the corner. I'm gonna leave that. I want the idea of the eye moving right to the edges. I don't like things sitting right in the middle of the frame of the canvas. I'm even going to let this go over the edge so you can see a bit of an oval. I'll show you all that at the end. But, and then I'm pressing hard again because you never know. Let's give that a spray. Let it settle. I might leave this. That might imply a big green leaf. Who knows? It'll be a hint, but it'll be in the background. I'm going to paint over these because I don't want them, but I'm not going to leave it like this. Although that might be kind of cool because it is an abstract. It could be that this is something sitting in front of the vase. I'm not too sure about that yet. But let's keep this. I don't want that. But I somehow have to define the bottom of this vase while still covering up. So I'll just do that. I don't care if it's not perfect. And I need more white there to really cover up that black. And then I'll fade. And hopefully it will never look or appear like there was black line there to begin with. So I'm going to keep dabbing layers, but I want to smush it so that it doesn't look like a column. I like how wonky that is, actually. I can add more white down there after. Here I don't want as much. I'm going to do the same thing I did up there. I want a hint, and I don't know if I want that. So I'm gonna let this flower take shape. I like how this is fuzzy. I'm gonna let this take shape so that looks like an individual flower. And I'm gonna do this. And I want this to look like a stem came out and there's a wonky flower, a defiant flower on the very end that kind of just is almost separated from the group. And again, take this and make it flat and just skim it across so I can get white on the surface and keep the green in the grooves. Especially down here, I want it to go right off the canvas, but I don't want it to be really dark. And I kind of like this smudge here, it matches that. I think that's kind of fun. I hope you agree. I'm not afraid of hearing your comments. I'd love to hear your opinion of where this took, the direction this took, because it definitely must have shocked you at one point, some of the things I did. But as an abstract artist, especially an intuitive one like I am, if you don't take great risks and chances, you're never going to learn. And I'm learning from this because I repeat, I don't normally do flowers or anything very realistic. I'm capable of it, but a lot of people do good things like that. They don't need me to do it. I like to show a different technique, my style. And again, I'm going to spray water here so that that stays wonderful as it is. So I know I'm isolating towards the center, but, and again, later on I can add pastel or things like that to bring out more things to make the eye move around the page as I like. But I'm liking this better. Maybe even a little more white there. This might look like one flower, and a little one right here. I think that's kind of cool. I like that. I'm really liking that now. I think I'll probably end up wanting to do something down here to bring, so I'm working on kind of an X. Let's keep a lot of this blue here because it's heavy here. I want some color up here. I want a little more white to get to the edges. I can do all these side paintings later. Right now I'm just worried about going over the edge. And I don't know if I want all this green here, just a hint of it. And even this, I'm kind of interested in making that take some kind of a shape, maybe even do that. That might look like a flower way off in the distance somewhere. I'm quite happy with this experiment, and that's what I'm calling it because, like I say, it's new to me. I'll put this in a jar of water. I'll give this a spray. I like how fuzzy that is as well. It kind of maintains the fuzzy feel of here and here. So I'm kind of repeating different effects. I think I want to make that more fuzzy as well. And to smush that, I didn't want so dark there. Maybe I can borrow some there. So I'm kind of liking this. Let's see where it goes. And I don't like this black. I'm not liking that, so I'm going to touch that up there. That's a lot better. And make that a dot. I like that better. Okay, let's let it dry. So this dried, and when the water evaporated, it's not as milky as it was when I first put it down. There's a lot of blue still showing here. So I might go around and just touch up a little bit more of this milky white effect, a bit more white. My big scrunchy brush. And I'm going to press hard with very little white on the brush so I can spread it around in a more milky way. That's better. I lost some of the definition that was here. So I'm going to sort of do this again so that I make it look like bang, a little bit of space behind them. I like that. I really like adding a little negative space. And I kind of like the idea that, again, this is an imperfect bunching of flowers and that it goes a little bit off kilter. So I like the idea that that could be a flower. This can be another one that's coming around in there. That could be one. And then maybe there's another one that's sort of back there that's a little bit fuzzy. I don't know if I want that yellow there. I can stain that magenta later, and I'm going to get rid of that. I don't want a round effect. I like a really odd undulating shape. And I don't think I like that red one there. And also I'm going to get rid of a little bit. I'm going to do some of this technique again where I fan the brush on its side flat over here so that I get rid of, I don't want that red there. I don't mind the green. Ooh, that's kind of neat to leave these as circles. If you've seen some of my other videos, I love finding ovals and circles and bringing them forward. So let's do that. Let's get rid of some of this and let's enhance that circle there. That's cool. I like 3 numbers. So let's bring those to the foreground. Bang, bang, bang. I like that. I can always add a little more green in there if I want. A little more space. Now it's starting to do something a little more fun. Yeah, now I'm getting the vibe. Ooh, that could be an interesting. And I like this fuzziness. I like that fuzziness. Just gonna encourage that fuzziness a little bit more. I need some more white down here. Covering over that black was fairly successful, but I need to add a little more white right there and along the very bottom. But I do want to keep this fuzzy green. So I think I'll do this. What I might do at the very end to bring the eye to the edges of the canvas is I might just do some mark making and scribbles. I think that'd really be fun, and it would bring it back to the abstract feel. So I'm pretty sure I've had that in my mind for a little while now. So I think that might be an effective way of keeping the vibe of the painting that I do while still providing an actual subject here, which is a bouquet. I need more white. I want a little bit more negative space right here. If I want to put some more blue in the background later, I can, but I'm trying to just cover up how dark some of that is. I can always go in there with a brighter blue later. I'm definitely going to add more blue. I think I'd like the idea of blue going across here in a band, just to create movement instead of just white and forcing this bouquet in the middle. I hope you understand what I'm getting at. But it'll be a light blue, so I'm just going to get rid of some of the background that was there. I really like the idea that that might be a flower petal, a flower off in the distance, and a little green off in the distance, so that's different. Why not? Who cares that it's not in the bouquet? It's flying off. It was part of the bouquet, and now it's just decided to take flight. I want much more white in this corner for that to disappear into, because the milkiness dried and evaporated, and it revealed more of the background than I wanted. That's really nice and subtle. And I'm going to leave a hint of these two things here, even though they're not, they may imply that there's, even in the distance again, more flowers. Who knows? But I like the movement, and I like that it's continuing the shapes, but they're disappearing and floating away. I want a little more white here and here. I don't want so much of that gold. I'm going to bring a little bit more white to the very top. I want a little more white here because I think I might put a glaze of a color back there. So I want to get rid of some of this dark burgundy that looks a little dirty. And I'm still going to keep that because I like that it hints that there's something way, way back in the distance. Same with these, they're kind of in the distance. These corners are all quite white, and this one's quite dirty looking, so I might add a little white paint, and again, I can always glaze over that with a pretty color, but I just need a little bit more opaque white. What do you think, people? That could be a flower that's kind of sticking out a little too. Let's put a little white there, and let's see. Let's give it a... That's a flower with its own leaf, kind of migrating that way. And I kind of like that there's something wonky going on there. I really like finding an undulating line with this negative space. Definitely there's gonna, so that we're getting close. The finale will be a little bit more glazing and then some mark making. And then I think I'm going to be very, very happy with this. And I hope you are too. But I really encourage you to let loose, put your controlling mind away, use a brush you wouldn't normally, like the smaller the brush, the more you want to do fine details. So a good trick is to use a bigger brush and just move it around, you know, even, you know, just do things that aren't too controlled. Interesting. My bouquet is breaking up, but I like it. If you had a bouquet in your house, unless you've got a very, very heavy one, like a dense one that the florist made in a perfectly circular kind of bundle, most of the time you put your flowers in a vase and they kind of start falling in different directions anyway, and that's sort of the vibe I'm going for. So I'm going to let this dry. Might just use a little more water so it spreads a little more organically. I'm not liking how dirty that is. And I like the wonky slanted shape of that. So I'm going to get rid of some of this, add some more negative space, get rid of this dirty color, and maybe keep some of this green, but in a wonky way. Maybe even let's get a circle of green going there. Why not? Maybe that could be a circle too. But I want to get rid of this dirty stuff. Again, I can glaze in there if I want to brighten it up a bit with a happy color, but I'm going to get rid of a little more. I want this to be more whimsical with the green, more hit and miss. And even though my leaves aren't round, I'm kind of repeating this round theme, circle theme throughout. And I do like that. I like circles versus sharp lines. Let's get rid of some of that. We're so close. Want to bring a little bit of space in here. And I don't like that dirty green there. So maybe I'll paint over this a little and I can brighten up that color to a brighter looking flower over top. And I'll get rid of that too, a little of that, and a little of that, and I will glaze some colors in there. I also think I'll get rid of some of that. Yeah, I like that that's not a circle, that it's wonky. I like that. What do you think? A little bit of empty space here too. I do want to make these look more like they're floating separate from each other instead of one big cluster. So let's rotate the brush a little to make it whimsical. And what I'm trying to do is set that one into the background a bit, making it more fuzzy. Let's put a little white there. I can always glaze a color there, but making that more fuzzy and giving a little white negative space there to make these all like they're jumping from different levels. And I'm going to put a little white here so that I can glaze some of this copper color of the vase. I didn't like how dirty that looks, so I'm going to start with some white, but I don't want to put it on heavy. I want it to be, this is the vase. I guess I'll get rid of that too. So I'm going to glaze, I'm going to let that dry and I'll glaze over this. Actually, that's neat to have a silhouette, a fuzzy silhouette, and then whatever color I come in here, we'll see what happens there. I'm trying to isolate individual flowers now. Put a little center there. Not that every flower needs an actual center because these are pointing off in different directions. I'm sorry this video is taking so long, but it's such a different project that I thought, let's just have a lot of fun with it. And I want to get rid of a little more of this. I scratched in the surface there, and I want to kind of keep that effect. And the more I add white away from it, the more it will bring that forward, make it more obvious. So let's see what that does. Don't like how dirty that is. I'm gonna do that and add a lighter green in there if I feel I need it or not. So I'm already really enjoying the improvement here of bringing depth to all these different clusters of flowers. I hope you agree. And let's let that dry and see where we go from there. Okay, while some of that is still drying, quite wet, it's still quite wet, I'm going to do a little bit of glazing here. Actually, what I want to do, because it'll be fun to watch the paint flow, what I want to do is get my lovely soft rigger brush. I don't want to make these obvious flowers. I'm already liking the direction they're going, but what I want to do is play with paint flow. So I'm going to put, this brush was wet, I'm going to put some interesting little swirls or blobs and spray and watch what happens. And I even like how that will go off in the distance with some interesting shading in the background. I kind of like that it's almost like an aura, and it fades. It's just making some interesting movement around my bouquet. I think that's fun. I didn't want crisp, clear flowers. I wanted it to somehow go into some shading. It just sort of hints that there are things in the background. At least that's what works for me. I don't want all of these magenta ones to have the same center. And in some of them, I'll do them a lot. Because these are in the foreground, I want it to be darker. I'm going to leave these disappearing a little lighter. But again, I'm just playing here and seeing what's happening. I like the element of this extra yellowy shadowing. I think that's fun. I'm glad I put the white there to differentiate the flowers. But now that I've got this gold here, it's kind of hinting at a background. Now this is very abstract. I think that's fun. I think that's a lot of fun. Let's give that a little spray. Oh, cool. I even like, okay, I know what I'm going to do in this corner. You see, things happen by accident, and then it gives me ideas. I want to spray and tip the canvas a bit and let some of that color roll down there. That's fun. I like that. In fact, let's help it along a little. Let's do that. Who knows? Maybe it's a funny flower with some funny petals, but I like that I've got something happening down there. These, I think I'll leave like a little, these are interesting too. Now I'm really going back to my roots of abstract. This is a little bit like the mark making that I promised. It's just happening in a different way. Let's get a little of that happening. Let's get a little bit of this yellow going up here, creating more of a movement up there. Magenta, this is so powerful. This is so full of pigment that I don't know what this is going to do, but oh, Now I'm having fun. See, now look at that. Whoa. Ho. Let's put a little bit of that. Look what's happening here with the colors. That's fun. Not sure about this. So let's make it look like it was a big, oh yeah, that's fun. Let's see what happens to that. That's interesting. Not sure what's happening there, but an awful lot of magenta happening here now. I think maybe I can do some more with mark making with the crayons. A little bit of, oh, look at how it's spraying out. Yeah, I don't like this dark burgundy, so this pink should soften that a little. So I said I was going to do mark making with crayons or something, but I'm doing it with the pen instead of the brush. Try not to overdo it to look like flowers, because that's over contriving. That's kind of fun, almost like a carnation. And let's get some more of this back in. Let's bring the vase out. Transparent red oxide. And I want to keep it looking light on the outer edge as like a reflection. And when this dries, I'm going to put a little deeper color in here, but I don't want to put it now or it's going to bleed in. But I like how whimsical this looks now. It's implying that it's in vase, but there's a lot of reflection. I think that's interesting. This is interesting what's happening. Some pale blue glazing. This is already a mix of transparent blue with white, so it's quite light. It's a little bit opaque, but it's not 100% opaque because it was made with a fluid white. But let's just see. Again, I don't want this to necessarily, as if bouquets aren't usually sitting right outside anyway, but I love just bringing in the blue as kind of a good contrast color. Let's bring it down here to the bottom of the page. Try not to get mixed with this gold because it'll turn brown, a greeny color. But I am just, as I said, trying to give a little movement and energy now. And I'm going to add more blue down here. I don't want this all floating up. I want the idea of some things coming down to the bottom. So I'm putting blue to the bottom. I think that's made a difference. Let's do that even more, make it a little more deep so that it shoots that in the background and this comes forward more. Let's put a little bit of blue here. I wish I had a few more oil pastels to use right now, but I don't. What I want to do is just highlight 1, 2, maybe 3 with oil pastel or these Woody Stabilos, just to make some wonky marks and to bring things forward. Again, this is the mark making I said I could do. These are water soluble, so I could paint over them if I don't like it, or I could actually take a wet wipe and wipe them off. So that's why I like using them. Whereas the oil pastels, if I use them, then it's a done deal. I can't paint over them. So let's just, again, I don't want to overdo the fact that they're flowers. I'm just trying to make whimsical marks. And move this orange color around the plate, around a little. It's just a good way of adding another layer of color, another color. And I don't even mind a little, you know, scribbling. This is the mark making I was talking about. I just think it's a little fun to do that. Again, if I don't like what I did with a wet wipe, I can wipe that right off. But I like these. Kind of brings the eye off the page. Let's do a little more of that. And a little more obvious over here. I'm just trying to anchor the bottom here too. I'm just trying to sort of anchor it, give the illusion of shadow. Ooh, I like that, even going over top that. I just wanted to anchor it down here a little bit. I don't know about any blue mark making. Maybe just a bit. What do you think? What do you guys think? Maybe a little bit of again, I don't want it being too bright back there. I want it to sort of disappear. Let's put a little bit of highlighting yellow in here. Ooh, that's kind of cool how it's picked up the texture on the paint. See that? I like that. Now I'm making it back to my typical style of abstract, and I can't help myself. That's what gives me more confidence and pleasure. But again, this has all been a learning experiment. I don't like all that dark there. I don't like how that burgundy almost looks like black now and dirty. So I just want to put a little bit of orange in here. And again, I'm not trying to make it look like a flower. I'm just sort of filling in some patches of color. This has got some interesting swirls that I want to bring forward, and maybe bring that yellow, orange. Oh yeah, I did promise that I would deepen that. So right now, and I'm not too sure, I kind of still like that that's in the background, but I'm going to add a little bit of, ooh, look at that. Just some scratchiness here. I kind of like that. So I just want to give the illusion of shadow from behind this flower so that the vase sits in the background and the shadow, the flower. I can always add a little more Stabilo Woody if I want. So this is just a glaze. I think I'm gonna, I like that this is very undulating and very patchy. I think that's fun. Again, it doesn't look like an obvious vase, but it implies it. To allow a little bit of shading. You know, very wonky, maybe even bringing up some of the movement of these crayons. That's kind of fun. You got to be brave. What I'm going to do, because this is going to run forever if I keep going, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to end this video here because I'm going to let this dry, and I'm quite happy with it, but I won't know until I sit and look at it across from my TV on the other wall for a few days. And when I think I'm happy with it, I will put a glaze or varnish over it to bring out the liveliness of it. But for now, I just want to call it a day.
I had a lot of fun showing you all of my video techniques that I've been teaching you over the year and how you can apply it to an actual canvas abstract. And I learned a lot myself this time. I encourage you to take leaps of faith, and when it works, it works. And when it does turn out happy surprises like this, then it just feels so much more rewarding. And so I'll leave it at that. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.